question of how to build a culture inside an organisation that helps them successfully transform, transition, change is an interesting one. I think that the answer starts with being human. And for me, one of the issues that many corporate organisations have is they are based on a structure and a hierarchy that was modelled on an industrialised economy. They were based on production lines, factories, and certain ways of working. They weren't based on creative problem solving. And today it's intellectual capital rather than physical labour that's most important. And problem solving works in really unusual ways. It doesn't work on a clock, doesn't work between certain hours, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Ideas happen in unusual ways. Often, interestingly, solutions come when we're not thinking about them. I don't know how it is for you, but for most people, if you're set a problem, you don't sit and stare at a screen, start to type and solve the problem. You think about it, and then you stop thinking about it. You might go for a run, you might go for a walk in the countryside, you might be out for dinner, and suddenly you go, oh, and a thought has occurred to you, and it's happened in your subconscious. And neuroscientists know that the subconscious deals with problems indirectly. It's below the surface, and then solutions bubble up. How do you enable an organisation to allow people to work with that in that way? It's really difficult. Meetings don't work. Getting people together for a brainstorm, that doesn't work. You get bad ideas. People feel that they have to impress when they are asked a question. The smartest people in the room aren't necessarily the best paid and the people with the biggest titles. Solutions can come from everywhere, so hierarchy is meaningless. So you need to build a culture, and when I say human, you need a human culture. You need to build a culture that reflects the way people actually operate and behave. And that needs to be much more playful, much more informal, much more flexible than most organisations currently are. There are some clues to how to make a culture more human. One of them is not to have appraisal systems that are once a year. Constant feedback is one. One of them is to give people ownership and allow people to be accountable. And that means devolving responsibility as far down and across the organisation as you can. In order to do that, reporting lines can't be hierarchical. They can't go up because that breeds fear. So you need to remove all fear. And playfulness is really important. If you look at children and how brave and bold they are with the way that they think, it's because there's no fear and they can enjoy themselves. So if I look at an organisation and I see fearful behaviours, I see a lack of trust, I see intimidation or bullying, I'm like, that business is going to die. If I walk into an organisation and I hear laughter, I see music, I see that people aren't asking where you are at a certain time, then I think, okay, this organisation stands a chance. It could succeed. The role of teaching in an organisation and educating people on new behaviours is a very challenging question. And I think it starts with throwing away the idea of teaching. I think it's about behaving and setting an example. So leaders of organizations these days, I don't think should see themselves as mentors or educators. I think that they should see themselves as demonstrating the behaviors they want others to follow. So I spoke a moment ago about being playful and having no fear. Leaders need to behave like that. That can be tough. As a leader, you're focused perhaps on things in smaller businesses, you'll be very focused on payroll and cash flow. You're worried about that. Turning up every day with a smile on your face, being really kind of immersed in solving the problems that most other people are dealing with, delivering better services to clients or customers. It's hard when you're thinking about revenue, but you've got to find a way to do that as a leader. I think people talk about failing fast. I don't know if failing fast is necessarily the right solution. I think failing openly is very important. Letting people see your weakness, your humility, not positioning yourself as, I know everything, I've got all the answers. I'm talking now, as if I do have the answer. I don't. These are ideas, these are thoughts. And I think we all have to get much more used to just sharing how we think and feel rather than saying, I have the answer. We all know the world is in a very challenging situation. There's lots of division and there's lots of anger. Many people are excluded from society, aren't living prosperous lives. It feels to many people as if their lives are going backwards, that children are going to have worse lives than they had. That's not happened for generations and generations. That's a really challenging situation. And if large companies don't help to fix that and help redistribute wealth in a more inclusive way, then it's not going to end well. How would I measure purpose or other soft values in an organization and whether those things are being successful? Well, I'd start by saying I don't think purpose is a soft value, so I think we should separate them. I think purpose is a hard commercial driver. When Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, says that purpose is a necessity, and some businesses may not even have the license to operate if they're not purpose-driven, then I think we can say it's a hard commercial imperative, it's a competitive advantage. So purpose is very different from some of the other kind of core values. If we look at purpose, first of all, and how you measure that, some of the measures are very tangible. Is it driving growth? Is it driving diversification, et cetera, et cetera? Others are slightly harder to measure. Does everybody in the organization understand the purpose? Does everybody believe in it? Are consumers motivated by that purpose? Is that purpose driving meaningful change in an organization? These things need to be measured fairly intuitively. There are some qualitative measures that can be put in place, and you can survey employees, et cetera, but you can feel when an organization is purpose-driven. And I think that's a primary role of the CEO. If the CEO supports the purpose, it's the CEO's responsibility to know if that purpose is really driving the behavior of everybody in the organization. And he and the board should course correct where necessary. Shareholders need to be supportive of that purpose as well. If they are, that's a sign, yes, it's working. The softer values, often businesses will have 4 or 5 core values. Again, I don't really know how to measure those, other than I think need to be measured in the context of the behavior of employees and whether the behavior of the employees in the organization lives up to the standards set by those values. How do you extend a value-driven proposition beyond profit and product is complex, I think. Firstly, at the core of any purpose should be a recognition that commercial imperatives can't be ignored. If purpose isn't driving profit, it's not an acceptable, relevant purpose to an organization. But if it's just about profits alone, then I don't really think it's a valid purpose. So it's in the nature of purpose that it does extend beyond product or profit, that it extends into the impact that an organisation has, I think first on its employees' well-being. So are those employees enjoying their experience? Are they motivated at work? Do they find it fulfilling? Are they able to balance their whole self in that organisation, bring their whole self and enjoy a rich life outside of their employee experience as well? So I think then purpose needs to enable that and facilitate that. And then in terms of product, extending beyond product, purpose should be embedded in the product. But if that's all it is, let's say, for example, an eco-friendly water bottle, then obviously that water bottle, if it's an eco-friendly business, it needs to be manufactured in a certain way. The supply chain that business uses must be not exploitative. They shouldn't be using cheap labour, etc., etc., etc. But then I think if they're truly purpose-driven, they should be looking at ancillary actions they can take to support that. How are they bringing clean water to communities? How are they lowering the cost of water in those communities? How are they perhaps training engineers in the third world so they can maintain water infrastructure in a certain way, etc. So starting to think about the entire ecosystem within which your business operates is a way to extend the purpose beyond just your central concerns, perhaps. My personal motivation is really simple. It's just to try and make, with every little action, big action, small action, just try to be a decent human being, you know. Yes, provide for myself and my family, but do that in a way that's respectful of other people and that helps me build friendships and relationships and enjoy my life.